All right, let's get right into it. So, you're thinking about buying or selling a care business here in the UK? You already know it's a huge decision. In this explainer, we're going to break down the absolute essentials for assessing any care service, whether that's home care, a residential home, or a supported living setup. Think of this as your no nonsense, practical guide. And we're kicking off with what is, without a doubt, the most important idea of all. This quote really says everything. Because a care business isn't just a spreadsheet and a building, is it? It's an entire organization that's literally built on trust. And forgetting that, well, that's the first and probably the biggest mistake anyone can make. Which leads us perfectly into our first section, beyond the numbers. It is so easy to get completely lost in the spreadsheets, but the real value of a care business? That's a whole different story. I want you to think of it like a three-legged stool. Of course, you need that first leg, financial health. That's a given. But if the second leg, compassionate care, is wobbly, you're going to have compliance problems and a terrible reputation. And if that third leg, community trust, isn't solid, well, the whole thing just comes crashing down. For the business to be truly worth something, all three have to be rock solid. So that all sounds great, but how do we actually measure all of this stuff? That brings us right to section 2, the core due diligence. We're about to walk through a 5-point framework that's going to give you a really solid, practical checklist you can use for any evaluation. And here it is. This is your roadmap. Think of these as the 5 pillars holding up any healthy care business. Getting a handle on these 5 areas is absolutely key to making a strong investment. So let's break them down one by one. First up, the financials. You've got to get your hands on at least the last 3 years of accounts to really see the trends. Is the turnover growing or is it stagnating? But the key metric to watch, it's different. For a care home, it's all about occupancy rates. Simple as that. An empty bed generates 0 income. For a home care agency, you need to be laser focused on the total number of care hours they're delivering and billing for. Next up, compliance. And in the UK, this is a massive one. The Care Quality Commission, or CQC. Their inspection history is a huge indicator of quality and risk. A good or outstanding rating isn't just a nice to have. It adds real, tangible value. But you have to dig deeper. Don't just look at the rating. Are they actually learning from complaints and incidents, or are they just ticking boxes? That tells you everything you need to know about their culture. Now, staffing. And honestly, this might be the most important pillar of all, because in care, the people are the service. So if you see high staff turnover or a business that's constantly relying on expensive agency staff, that is a massive flashing red light. It points to problems under the surface. It drives up costs like crazy, and it shatters the continuity of care that people depend on. A stable, well-trained team is one of the most valuable assets you could ever hope to buy. Okay, let's talk about where the money's actually coming from. A healthy mix of private clients and local authority contracts, that's what gives you security. You need to understand if they're on block contracts, which guarantee income, or spot purchases, which can be way less stable. And you must always ask the critical question, are any of the big contracts coming up for renewal soon? Because that's a huge potential risk to your future income. And finally, reputation. What's the word on the street? How is this business really seen in the local community? Sure, check the online reviews, but here's a pro tip. Ask if they have a waiting list. A waiting list is a fantastic sign of high demand. Then zoom out a bit. Look at what the local authority is projecting. Is the need for this kind of care growing in the area? That right there tells you everything about its potential for future growth. So that 5-point framework, that's your foundation, but you have to apply it differently depending on what you're looking at. Not all care businesses are created equal, so knowing the specific quirks of each sector is absolutely vital. And you can see here the focus really shifts. For a home care business, it's all about the stability of those contracted hours and whether the staff rota is resilient enough to handle them. For a care home, the physical property itself is a huge part of the value, right alongside occupancy. And with supported living, it's even more complex. You have to investigate the housing agreements just as closely as the care packages themselves. And now for the part everybody wants to know. What's it actually worth? And maybe more importantly, what are the absolute deal breakers you need to be watching out for? This is where the hard numbers meet the non-negotiables. Here are the typical valuation benchmarks. They're based on a multiple of EBITDA, which is just a common way to measure profitability.
And you can see care homes often get the highest multiples. A big reason for that is you're often buying a significant property asset, which gives you more security. But please remember, these are just guide figures. A stellar reputation can push that multiple up, while a poor CQC report will drag it right down.
But honestly, even more important than the valuation multiple are the red flags. These are the deal breakers. A heavy reliance on just one contract, that puts the entire business at risk. An ongoing safeguarding investigation, that signals very serious problems. These are the things that should make any buyer pause and think very, very carefully.
So, after all the checklists, all the financials, and all the red flag reviews, it really all comes down to one final crucial step. This brings us to our last section, the final judgment. You see, the due diligence process, that's the science. It gives you the facts and the data you need to make an informed decision. But the final call, that's the art. It's about your judgment, your eye for opportunity, and that gut feeling you get about the culture and the real potential of the service. A business that looks perfect on paper might be hiding challenges, while one that has a few flaws could have incredible potential in the right hands.
So we've walked through the whole framework for a solid evaluation, from the financials right through to the red flags. It really is a balance of forensic analysis and human insight. At the end of the day, you'll have all the facts in front of you. The ultimate question is, what will your judgment be?